GKFX Prime presents the Market Analysis Webinar.
Hello everybody, welcome back. It's another week in the markets. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dima, and as ever, I'm going to be analyzing a few high probability opportunities in the markets for this week. Last week we had NFP week. We had some major news happening. We are now beginning to take a set in the market, some new directions forming, and let's see where the market takes us this week. Let's see which one of the charts, which one of the markets look like the better setups, the high probability setups. Hope you had a good trading week last week, and let's follow one this week. Let's make it a good one and see what we've got here for this week. All right then. As ever, I'm going to begin with the economic calendar and see what's going on this week so that we can bear it in mind. Sunday, don't forget to shift your clocks in Canada and USA. We've got a daylight saving time shift, so bear that in mind. Adjust your charts and your timing for your trades. Monday, we've got a speech from the ECB, so that'll be Euro related. Tuesday, we have got a speech again from Switzerland, that's on the franc, and another speech from Australia. And we've also got elections on that day in America, so bear that in mind for the dollar. Wednesday is an empty day, so Thursday, looking to Thursday, there's the CPI numbers from the US, so look out for that. That is usually a big one. And we've got a speech from the Canadian Central Bank. And then Friday, to end the week, we've got the pound GDP figures and another speech on the Swiss franc there. And also at the same time on Friday is bank holidays in Canada and America. So that's the week for you here. Let's see how we can pair that up with the charts, what we've got for this week. It's looking like an interesting one, I'm going to say, and we may have some interesting formations happening. So let's just have a look at what's going on here. I'll start as ever with you on the major pairs. Let's have a look on the dollar here. Dollar zooming out, euro dollar here. We've got this level down here, the major retracement on the monthly, and on the weekly we have got what looks to be sort of a ranging market and possibly reversing after we've got this high being broken. Looking at this trend line right here, we have a possible break. We had this move to the downside, taking out these lows, previous week lows, and that NFP week then closed bullish last week. So I'll be looking for a continuation to the upside on the euro there. What can we see? Well, here is what I'm going to be looking at. So first of all, there's a major high right here, which first of all I'd like to be broken in order to increase the probabilities and close above. And looking on the 4-hour, we can see this gap here in the market and a retracement to the downside to then continue on its way higher and then break these lows. And then we have the next obvious high up here. Sorry, I should say next previous high, not previous lows. So there's that other high over here. And below here would be an invalidation point. So if the market actually does the opposite during the week and we break this low, we are probably going to continue lower. At the moment, as it stands, looking at this very big bullish move on NFP, and here is a possible area for a higher probability entry for the move to go about 200, 250 pips up here to these next obvious levels. So far, you can see that we are in a slightly lower probability on the higher time frame because we got this ranging market and it's slowed down. We don't have these lower lows and lower highs anymore. In fact, we have higher highs and higher lows on the daily, which adds to the idea of the upside bias. So that's euro dollar for you. Let's move on now to another euro pair, euro New Zealand. So last week, euro New Zealand, zooming out, we had this big move initially, and last week's candle was very bearish down here. So I'm gonna just look at this initial move and measure that, and I can see that we are still above the 50% area, the halfway mark. Therefore, I'm expecting a bit more of a downside, a bit more of a retracement, this being the whole retracement, before a possible move to the upside. So the next place I look for is the 50 and then the 61.8. So I'll just remove, oops, let's just get rid of all these other markings. They're not necessary anymore. So I'll be looking to come down to the downside a little bit further, continuing that retracement. Looking at the 4-hour, I can see that we have broken the structural lows. We're creating lower highs, lower lows. So now I'll be looking for a better price in this zone to continue to the downside. And then once it breaks, if we have the next pullback, that will be another possible opportunity to come down to that area. And I would say the more conservative one would be here, this level, because we could see this swing down here. This could have been possible low, so we may come down and hit this low before considering going lower, because this is the safer bet. It's the higher price, right? So let's just be conservative on this one. That's where I'm looking at euro New Zealand here. A little bit further downside, and then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, that's euro New Zealand, and now let's go to pound Aussie. Looking at the pound Aussie on the weekly once again. So again, we see a similar picture to the euro New Zealand, an initial very, very bullish move. And now, oops, now we are in this retracement phase. So the question is, where are we going to come down to in this retracement? If I look on the daily, we have a level here, and we also have a level down here. Just draw it a little bit more accurately. So still a few, about 200 pips to go. Now the next level down from there will be here, as you can see, this zone. So continuation to the downside with this bearish candle from last week, which broke multiple lows, as you can see here. And looking on the 4-hour, I have this previous swing up here and the low down here if we don't head lower. So a retracement into this zone here that you can see, which would coincide with the 50 and 61. You can now remove this level somewhere up here, then coming down, continuing to the downside to this first level, and perhaps the second one that is 250 pips away, and then another 180 pips or so. So a decent move there available potentially. That will be the high probability setup. Now, the opposite case, looking at the opposite case, would be this high right here. So if we go higher and break, then I will breaking of this level here, that will be the point of invalidation. I'm no longer going to be looking at that as a possible setup, because we will then have turned into a possible bullish scenario, and the setup will not be in our favor basically anymore. That's the main idea. So we want to see that confirmation, we want to see this high held and a continuation lower down, right? That's the pound New Zealand. Okay, next another pound pair. We do have a pound news this week, and we also have Swiss news. So here's pound Swiss. Let's have a look here on the weekly. So here we go. A couple of weeks ago, we did reach the initial target I was looking for, and then I was looking for the next level up here to be the next target. Now we haven't reached that. Instead, we made a retracement last week. So lower down, I'm going to be looking at a possible level to trade from. So let's just remove the previous markings. Let's remove last week's, not necessary anymore. I'm gonna look at this target as a continuation, and what I could see is a nice zone down here that we can make a possible retracement to. That would coincide with the 61.8 here, and as marked previously, last week was not the case. We did make that retracement as expected, but we didn't quite reach into this area. We just continued moving further down and did push to the upside, which indicates that we may come and breach these lows down here and come into this area. So if that's the case, I'll be waiting for something like that, and then continuing to the upside and then forming new swings, higher lows, and then breaking into lower highs. Sorry, higher highs, I should say. That would be more accurate. So that is the idea on the Swiss here, pound Swiss. So we have both pound news and Swiss news, so that can create a little bit of volatility. Let's see how it forms, how it pans out with the news. Okay, what's next? Let's have a look at the next one on the list. Let's go to the S&P. All right, so what do we have with this S&P? I was looking at this area up here to reach into and then a reverse. That did not happen last week. So instead we broke a low. So we have this, as always, the market can surprise you. You have to always have to make different judgments and reassess based on what happens. So this high was not taken here. Up here we didn't go into the zone. Instead we broke into lows, which now indicates that we are in fact going to be breaking down from where we ended up at this high last week. Now, if that's the case and we are breaking down and we are breaking these lows, therefore I would expect lower prices. So with lower prices, where we're going to look for? Well, we're going to see this big spike, this candle up here, and a retracement into this zone once again, which we're kind of already at, leaving a wick and breaking down, breaking lows. And then the next low to be broken would be this one. So this would be the first place of interest. This high would be an invalidation point, because if we go higher, then we now don't know what's going on because we're expecting lower prices. And then as it comes lower, as it breaks the lows, I'm going to see a further pullbacks or further retracements into possibly this zone or wherever the retracement may be. Could be higher up, of course. That will be another opportunity to go short. So that's what I'm looking here on the S&P. That's the possible scenario. As I said, if it goes higher, then I will be again reassessing the situation. And again, if the market creates some more volatility or a big range, we could be forming a range right about here. And if that's the case, then yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens, and possibly still look to this area right here for a reversal to the downside if this whole idea, the scenario that I've got in mind here, doesn't play out. So let's see what actually happens, and the price action will give us those clues that will indicate the market will show us what it wants to do. So as it stands, this is the high probability scenario, but I'm going to reassess, going to stay flexible, always remain flexible, and of course manage your risk. So that's the S&P index. Let's go into oil now. Looking at oil here on the weekly, this is one that we've been monitoring. You've probably seen it, and a few weeks we have had to put on pause on oil because we have had this rangy market and the direction was not so clear. Now what it looks like is that if we just take this away, let's remove all of these so we don't create a mess. It looks like we have now formed a what looks like a low here, and now we are heading higher. So we've got these bullish candles. Now the interesting high from here would be this last obvious high, and a break of this high would be indicating that the market wants to go higher still, and then break this high, and that would create a new higher high after this whole downtrend, so that we would now be forming a new uptrend. This would be a higher low, and then we'd have a higher high, and then a break of that. Obviously the next point of call will be this high up here, and then the next high up here. That's the next structural point. Looking down on the 4-hour, let's just remove this big circle. So looking for that break, that would be the confirmation, and then we have a zone down here, if you can see it. I would like a nice pullback. Obviously the deeper the pullback, the better the setup, the higher probability, the better price, the better risk reward, etc. So that's what I'll be looking for, and then reaching into this high up here. Again, invalidation would be this low. So in case we do reach a bit lower, that's also a possibility. However, I'm liking this level up here. If I look left, we've got a few more patches to take into account, and we can see there's some kind of significance to this level here. So that's the possibility, that's the high probability idea right here, and then heading higher, and we'll see how high we can go, if we can even move up to these highs. But that's a long way away, and don't want to be speculating on that right now, do we? You can see Friday bearish NFP and bearish candle. The week ended very bullish, and now just going to wait for this high to be cleared, and then heading high into higher prices. That's the idea on oil. Right, and finally, as always, I'm going to go to Bitcoin, constant one to be monitored. Right, so Bitcoin is looking interesting here, because just as we were talking about last week, we've reached into this area, into this zone where I was looking at possible reversal, something interesting to happen. What happened is we did bounce, but we did not create any bearish price action. It wasn't very strong here, and then we just moved sideways. And then what would happen here is we made another higher high. So where to from here? Let's delete. Let's delete this. Let's delete this, just for clarity. Right, so I marked this one out as the invalidation point. That's the point where we're no longer looking for a short, we'd now be long, but we're not there yet. We're still in this area, so I'm still going to leave the possibility of the market heading lower into account. Now, looking here, we've got this last spike, so heading lower, first we need a break of this level and this level, and heading lower. And then once we head lower, then I'll be looking for some kind of pullback situation and coming down into these lows down here, but first wanting to get a better price. So not going to assume that this is a high. That will be low probability scenario. I'm just going to wait for the market to tell us what it wants to do, and then once it breaches these lows, if it does that, then I'll be looking for that short idea. Now there's also a possibility that it heads higher, of course, and if it continues going much higher and then breaching this 22,700 level, then just leaving this alone, and I'm going to wait to see what the market does from there. No idea how high it's going to go. Is it going to retrace here? Well, likely that it will, but obviously no guarantees and no idea which way it's going to go and how it's going to play out. If it's going to just drop from here, or it's going to range and then drop. So just going to wait for it to unfold. It might take a little bit more time. It has been ranging for a long time, this market. We can see loads of weeks of ranging movement. I'm still biased to the downside because we haven't breached this high. Looking at the weekly, you can see these ranging market candles, rangy movement, and nothing here to yet indicate either direction. Yep, you can see that. I would really want to see a lot of bearishness, a lot of downside, a lot of momentum, big candles like this one and this one to show the resumption of the bearish idea. But so far, neither here nor there. So I'm gonna have to leave it alone. I'm gonna have to accept what it's telling us. Okay, so those are the 7 charts for this week. Manage your risk as always, as I keep repeating and parroting on about it, but it is the most important thing. As you know, these are the setups we're looking for. We do have, bear in mind, pound news, and we do have 2 pound pairs, we have 2 euro pairs, and we do have dollar base pairs with Bitcoin, S&P as well, oil to some extent. So do bear these things in mind. Let's see where, first of all, the dollar takes us. If dollar is weak, then typically we will see higher prices on the S&P index. Typically we probably see lower prices, higher prices on Bitcoin if dollar is weak, and then again higher prices on oil. So that is the week for this week. Thank you for joining me. Hope that's useful to you. Again, if you have any comments, questions, comment your comments in the comments below, and I will have a look at that, and we'll go through the setup if you've got any questions. So yeah, I may have missed some charts, but these are the ones that I've picked up for this week. Concentrate on the ones that are higher probability. I personally quite like the, I would say oil. Bitcoin is a bit too early to tell. S&P looks quite good. Euro New Zealand might be a short move, and Euro dollar pretty good as well. Let's see how it works out. Yeah, that's this week in the markets for you. Thank you very much for joining me. See you again next week, and have a great trading week. Watch out for the news whichever day you're trading, even if you're doing longer term swing trades, and yeah, manage your risk and your stop loss accordingly. All right, thank you very much for being here with me. I'll see you on the next one. All right, bye for now.